Welcome, welcome, luminaries. I'm so excited to bring this amazing interview today and introduce you all to Annalyn Cruz. Annalyn Cruz is a Cancer sun, Aquarius moon, and a Pisces rising. And if you saw her chart, you would just know how off the charts intuitive she is. So, Annalyn is a dream life and leadership coach, a seasoned facilitator and storyteller that guides women and BIPOC leaders to heal their inner critic, connect to what they really love, and confidently become the best versions of themselves. She's the CEO and founder of Grounded in Wisdom. Welcome, welcome, Annalyn.
Thank you, Leslie. It's good to be here.
Welcome to Star Powered Astrology for Changemakers. I'm Leslie Tagorda, your guide, a Hawaii born Filipino Jewish astrologer who loves navigating visionaries like you through the spiritual journey of your work so that you can be inspired to lead by your chart and become the luminary leader you were born to be. All right. Well, I really wanted to bring you on to chat because I feel like you've gone through some massive and deep transformations over just even this first quarter. And I wanted to share your story.
I would love to share my story, and I'm honored to share it with all your listeners and to, share what's on my heart, what's in my spirit.
Beautiful. So Annalyn is she's currently in Star Powered Circle and she is in the Luminary edition, which means that we signed up for a year long worth of mentorship. And I remember I got this I sent out these messages because I was feeling people's energies kind of like holding on for dear life, so to say. And not just you, there was like it was in the zeitgeist just because, right before Pluto went into Aquarius and I felt everybody kind of like freaking out. And you were one of the people that was like, what's going on? And you had sent me this message, and I'm so grateful that you sent me this message because, half the time when we're kind of struggling, right, we don't reach out for help. We're like, we got this. It's all on me. There's something wrong with me. I
Yeah.
can figure it out on my own. But do you remember when you reached out to me that one time?
I want to say that I reached out. I reached out a couple times. I
Yeah.
remember I reached out to you and Jeff probably in February and then again maybe in early March,
Yeah.
which my message was basically saying, Leslie, I am freaking out, or I'm just in a space right now where things and life feels very overwhelming. And I don't
Yeah.
know if I can continue doing this program given what's on my plate. And I shared with you that I lost a very dear friend who was a sister to me in early January. So I've just been riding the tsunami waves up and down over the past quarter. So I thought to myself, something's got to give and something has to drop off my plate. And maybe
Yeah.
it would be this program and working with you. And so I did reach out, and I remember the message you left me, which was really supportive and just totally what I needed to hear, which was, it's completely up to you. And sometimes when we are in these types of transformations and transitions in our lives, we often need people to help us along and to support us. And that just really, I really sat with that and really accepted that, because in my life I have often approached things with the attitude of, I could take this, I could go at this by myself, or I have other support systems in place. And there was just something about our conversation and our continued conversations of you wanting to be a support to me, that intuitively I felt like, accept the help from Leslie and continue doing what you can do and release the pressure of being the good Asian daughter and good, student, and release those identities, because that was what was kind of internally, I was pressuring myself to perform at a high level
Yeah.
to show up in this space, and it's not even about that. So yeah, that was a big part for me to just release that and then accept the help that's being presented to me, you know?
Well, if I may share, just like I remember our conversation so vividly. I remember I was driving over the Bay Bridge and we had like set up just kind of like a quick phone call,
Yes.
because you were really going through it. I think you were, just in this like the deepest darkest parts of like that grief. And I remember looking at your chart because your sun is at that 29 degrees of Cancer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so at Cancer, one of the cardinal signs, Cancer, Capricorn, Aries, and Libra. And so, with astrology, that at like the anaretic degree, this very final degree, and Pluto had just been sitting on another anaretic degree at that Capricorn of 29 degrees, just getting ready to move through. And I was like, Annalyn, like, Pluto is this process of like death and rebirth. You were sharing with me this, like, you were just so grieving so hard and just feeling really stuck in this place of grief. And we opened up this question. I was like, well, what if, right? Yes, the loss of your dear sister, your soul sister, terrible, terrible. But what if there was also something else that you were grieving and not wanting to let go of yet?
Yeah,
And I felt that really shifted things for you.
it did. And I think it was letting go again of the parts of myself that may have served me in the past, such as being the good girl, being the high achieving student, being the corporate trainer and facilitator, right? Like there's all these identities that have shaped who I was at the time. And then as I've been doing this very deep reflection and very hard, but yet
Mhm.
needed inner work and healing I've been doing over this past quarter, I started to realize that that's not who I am anymore. And I don't know if that ever was who I truly was at the time. It was this realization that those identities and what I had been holding on to were not serving me. They were not in alignment anymore. And I think I was grieving knowing that deep within, and yet not knowing how to fully release it or what would happen if I released it, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, what I love hearing you say is like just like these identities, kind of what I'm hearing you recognize are like these old identities that you've like far outgrown and shattered, like
Mhm.
the identity of like being the good girl, right? And what does it mean to be a good girl in Asian culture? Like being like dutiful,
Yeah,
being listening to everything, doing
right.
it their way.
That's right. Yeah. Doing it in a way that is, won't bring shame to the family, right? Or staying in line with what's safe and what's known.
Mhm.
And I just can't continue to live that
No.
way.
And then you started your own business, Grounded Wisdom,
Yep.
and but still seeing corporate clients. And when you left your business that last time, you were also sharing with me your like kind of your manager's expectations for you to do things in their way.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you work for any sort of organization, you have a manager or leaders above you, of course, that trickles down, right? Like you are working for that corporation, that organization. And so I didn't have full autonomy to do exactly what I wanted to, right? There was always this sort of approval process that has to happen. And so I just realized over time that my spirit, my intuition was longing to just do my own thing.
Yeah.
And, there was a time in my life, in my past, where I felt like my spirit's dying here.
Yes.
It's literally feeling like it's being cut off at the knees and is just, and I don't want to like finger point or blame any one person. I think it's just it's capitalism. It's the way in which we do things in certain parts of the world. And I was just like, this doesn't feel right to me anymore. And I wanted to create my own path forward, even when I didn't know what that completely looked like, which was the scary part of
Yes.
trying to figure that out.
Well, I feel like one of the things that, even I feel like that conversation that we had that was like maybe about 45 minutes long, just kind of like breaking through and looking at all of the places that I feel like the grief had such a grip on you because your soul knew that you're ready to let go, yet the Annalyn ego wasn't ready to let go yet. And we crafted this quick release ceremony, and you called me the very next day. You voxed me the next day and you're like, Leslie.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, so you encouraged me to do some sort of release ceremony based on what are the things or the behaviors or the identities that no longer serve me. So what I did was, on sheets of paper, I was writing down, what am I letting go of? And I put it in a mason jar. So I was just like, I'm letting go of, having to speak in a corporate way. I'm letting go of being the good daughter. I'm letting go of, being the type of business owner that I think people want me to be, just all the things. And I filled up that big mason jar to the brim, and I just sat with it and I looked at it and I was like, wow, this is a lot that I'm releasing. And I sent you the Voxer and the message,
Yeah.
and just how, whew, like just how transformative that felt to even write it down, look at each piece of paper, and then tear it up. So I tore up every single sheet and then eventually burned it and or put in the shredder. So
I
that's
love it.
cathartic too, of just being able to let all that shit go.
Bye bye shoulds, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's down the ether. It's no longer a part of me. That, yeah, that was really powerful. Really powerful.
And then I want to also, I again, I vividly remember this because I thought it was so impactful just witnessing you go through all of these stages like in quick succession. Because as
Mhm.
soon as you released all those shoulds, you had space and you downloaded something really huge.
Yeah. So one of the things that also happened in this process was saying no to a project that I've been dragging my feet on, to be honest. And I couldn't figure out why the feet were dragging. Like, it just kept going on and on. I'm like, what is that about? And I knew, again, I think my soul was trying to tell me this isn't in alignment, but it's good money, right? It's
Mm,
good money. It's good on paper. So therefore, just keep trudging through. Like, maybe at some point there will be a time when it's no longer feet dragging, but that I'm really going to be in it now. And once I mentally made the release of, I'm gonna actually say no, based on all of the transformation, all the reflection I've been having. So once I mentally said no and knew that I was going to send that email, that night unlocked something really incredible within me, which was, oh my gosh, all of these dreams that I had, or all of these ideas, suddenly were able to come through.
yes.
And that was a download where I had 12 pages in my journal of just writing down ideas that I felt honestly were coming from spirit, and were coming from a higher place that allowed me to finally say, okay, you're ready now. You're
Yeah.
ready for this next step. You are ready to unlock your creativity. You are ready to unlock the gifts that you're supposed to bring to this world, instead of doing things because it sounds good on paper, or it's another should
Yes.
that would provide you the money, but really my heart and my spirit wasn't connected to it. So that was a huge unlock for me of, wow, is this what could happen if I actually allow myself the time and the energy and the space to dream beyond what I think I should be doing.
Oh my goodness. Because I remember you had sent me this Voxer. You're like, Leslie, I just downloaded this new workshop. And I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. I came up with 2 new workshops and a potential group coaching program, all
Yes.
in within 30 minutes, I want to say, maybe less.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then we like right shortly after that, then we had like an in-depth kind of one-on-one astro brand reading where you're like, okay, Leslie, I need to get this all straightened out. Let's look at what we did. And so I remember when we were working on that, we looked at your superpowers of what you are really here to do. We looked at your own creative process so that you wouldn't be kind of like swept under from somebody else trying to tell you what to do. Like you were so honed in and attuned to your own creative process.
Yeah.
And that really helped you. Because I remember at the very beginning of that conversation, you're like, Leslie, I'm suffering from scarcity mindset because we're talking about that money, right? It's good
Yeah.
money. And then there was also that gatekeeping lady,
Oh yeah, I remember.
right?
Hmm.
And so like I feel like just to kind of like I want to go into those stories, but like in literally like the span of like 4 weeks, you went through this idea of procrastination and like letting go of grief. You recognize all of the colonial mindset and like the oppressions that you are still holding on to, you know, from like family constellations and just being a Filipino. We all suffer from that.
Yep.
You got over scarcity mindset because we were looking at, okay, well, you're looking at the money, but that's not what we're valuing here. Like, what are we really valuing? We got really clear on your values and how you add value. And then we got over this place of belonging and acceptance from that crazy gatekeeper. So, like, in the span of 4 months or like 1 month, we uncovered like four massive
Yeah.
blocks.
Totally. And thank you for saying that out loud because, I think sometimes when we go through these sort of transformations, we don't see it within ourselves or it's not as clear. So just you even kind of like wrapping in
Witnessing.
witnessing and being able to mirror back to me like, here's all that's happened. I'm like, wow, that's pretty good. Like that's amazing.
That's why it's so I just want to reflect back, like that's why it's so important to have like support systems. Like I am a support for you, I'm a support for other people, but I have my own guides, I have my own mentors and people that I go to, because this is not something that we do alone, because we need people to witness and to hold
Right.
space.
Yeah.
And so I want to go back to can we share that story about that gatekeeper?
Oh yeah. We could definitely share that story.
Because that one was a big one to me too. And there was some recognition there as well.
Yeah. So I basically went in front of an executive team, to present myself and my offering, to do a leadership development program for their managers and leaders. And as soon as I got into the space, there was one particular woman, who was on the call, i.e., the gatekeeper woman, who came at me real hot and not in a good way, was very much questioning who I was, and in a way that was just so disrespectful. It felt very disrespectful and just cutting, so there was this underlying tone and feeling of, you need to prove yourself to me. And it was sort of like a dance monkey dance sort of interaction that I was completely not ready for and very surprised about. And no one else showed up that way, just her. And I could feel in my body from like bottom to top, like my blood pressure and the the anger, honestly, coming from my chest all the way to my throat, to my face, to probably like my seventh chakra. It was just coming through loud and clear in terms of my body saying, this is not the right fit.
Yeah.
Like, this is not okay. And this is not a situation that you want to be a part of for any future engagement. And I was so upset. And I remember I reached out to you and I was like, oh, I just went through a really horrible situation right now that in the past, I think my younger self, and I say younger meaning even just like a quarter ago,
Yeah.
would have said, oh no, what did I do wrong? Was it something? Did I not show up well? Was I not prepared? Oh, what did this other person do, this other candidate do that I didn't? I did have those thoughts very
Yeah.
quickly, to
Yeah.
be honest, right?
Yeah.
And then the next morning I woke up and I was like, fuck that shit. I was like, I'm not going there anymore. This was nothing about me. This was about how she shows up in the world. And that actually, that interaction and the anger, the deep anger that I felt from within, not only for myself, but for other people in our communities who have to deal with this type of bullshit behavior every day in the workplace. And that is what, and even now you could just hear in my voice, like that's what fired me up, because
Yes.
I thought to myself, I cannot believe that a person like this can show up in this way and it's accepted.
Mm.
It's just accepted. And I kind of, reflected on other people who I've worked with in the past who may not have had the same um agency, or are in a situation where they're afraid to speak out, right? They're afraid to confront those microaggressions or moments in which they're being disrespected, because that may come directly from their boss, or that may come directly from someone who holds the power of their career path in their organization. And that fired me up, because I thought to myself, this is exactly what I needed to go through in order to change my energy and my focus to really hone in on what is it that I want to do in my business? Who am I trying to serve?
Yeah.
You know, and it's for folks who go through that type of stuff every day, who doubt
Yeah.
themselves, or who their inner critic is the one that's coming through and is
Yeah.
taking over, right?
The shoulds. I call the inner critic, I call it the inner oppressor.
Yeah.
Because one of the things, so I remember that conversation vividly also, because you sent another SOS Boxer. You're like, you were actually like, you were in like, you had just gotten off the Zoom call with them and you were feeling pretty low. I don't think the anger had yet fired you up.
Yeah.
And I remember there was just feeling just like this kind of sense of like, and if I may say, this sense of kind of rejection,
Yeah.
where like you didn't belong, you weren't accepted, you weren't good enough, all of
Right.
those things.
Right.
And I remember asking you that question. I was like, well, is she this type of woman? And you were like, yes. And we started talking about all the qualities of this kind of gatekeeping persona. Okay. She happened to be a white woman, and this gatekeeping persona can be any race,
Mm-hmm.
any like any sexuality, any of it, any gender. But there's this particular archetype that I see in corporate America, where a white woman has done everything she's done to like break the glass ceiling, and now she holds and embodies the power of the oppressor. And so then she like
Mm-hmm.
does it to others. And so we had a long conversation about that. What we recognize about the gatekeeping, and I love that expression fired up, that how you let that anger rise, because when we can use anger in a constructive way, it gives us the motivation and the activism and the advocacy to make change. And this is when you started making these huge changes. And I was like, okay, hold on, Annalyn. So you started your own business. Why? And we started to recognize how in certain parts, when we're looking for that belonging and acceptance, because you are that Cancer sun, you are that Aquarius moon. And I was sharing about the similarity about the acceptance and belonging that both Aquarius and Cancer really, really desire.
Mm-hmm.
But we had to flip the tables. Instead of you acting like an employee, you're the business owner.
That's right.
right? It's your turn to be like, to be interviewing them. Like, are they a good fit for me? Not, am I a good fit for them? And so you had some like massive, like, I just saw you go, and I'm like raising my arms because like just these up levels that happen again, just like boom, 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 boom. And I'm just like, so celebrating you, Annalyn, for all of that. So now, what happened after that conversation?
So after that, I was quote unquote rejected because she was feeling the other candidate that was put in front of her. And what was funny was like I was already feeling the same way, you know, and I think what, again, going back to that scarcity mindset, I was thinking to myself, if I'm offered this, I know it would be good money, but yet again, I'm like, is that worth it? And no. And the answer is a big fat no, because I knew, again, this would be a struggle, right? It would be a struggle working with a gatekeeper like that. And not only that, but, you know, to have to do things in a way that I would have to do it from an employee perspective, right? Like they are hiring me to show up and do things in a certain way and order take in a certain way. And I get that that's the often what consultants do, or folks who have to take on projects like that, but that's not how I want to operate.
No.
And that wasn't unlocked when you said that to me around employee versus business owner or entrepreneur mindset is, yeah, I get to call the shots. You know, I think sometimes when we come from those systems, as we talked about in another conversation of, you know, when we come from these systems or organizations of oppression, and then we leave that space and then go into our own business, that sometimes that trickles in, right? Sometimes we are used to bringing that into our own space. And that was really big for me too, because I realized, wow, I am doing that. I am holding on to some of those shoulds or the ways in which I was doing work before, how I would interact with people. And I was just like, I am not going to operate this way anymore.
But then you had an opportunity call and the space that was opened up because you were like fired up. What happened then?
Yeah. Was that the
When you got the dream deal with that paid double your ROI in our work
Oh,
together?
yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, thank you. So I had another opportunity that came up, and I will just say that it was night and day in terms of that interaction, right? And I could just tell the person that I was going to be working with, one, she is a white woman and a totally down ally. So that I could just, you know, I have known her from the past, and I knew that's how she's going to continue to show up, right? And the conversation was easy, it flowed, we were on the same page. I didn't feel like I had to prove anything to her,
Yes.
because she was like, I'm going to pay you what you're worth. Like, I work for one of the richest companies in the world. Yeah, you're going to get what you asked for. Right. And it was just like, oh, like just, oh, my body was just even immediately at ease. Right. Like, total opposite of what I had experienced the week prior with that other meeting and conversation that I had. And so when that happened, it was another, I think, reaffirmation and download from the universe saying, see, this is what you're meant to do.
Yes.
These are the types of interactions and business partnerships that you could have, and you could have more of this. This isn't a one and done. You can continue to have this abundance and flow when you're actually living your values and not trying to be someone else.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that I want to recognize, the thing that you also did to stretch yourself when you're putting together that proposal, you asked for more than you normally ask for.
I did. I increased it by, it's funny, I had the number and then I increased it by another $1,000. And I was just like, why not?
Yeah.
Right.
And they didn't bat an eye. They just said
No.
yes.
Yeah. They just said yes.
And so
No,
reflecting that, like, right, like we were having these, like, asynchronous conversations on Voxer as all these things were happening, and I was celebrating you so hard, Annalyn. Like, it was just so wonderful. And so I want to talk about your story, about your business, and like just all the things that you do and that all that you've discovered. But before I go into that, I just wanted to share with the listeners, right? Like this idea of how astrology allows us to attune to like what is ours, what's our superpowers, what we truly value, how we do things. It attunes to like the things that we need to break through and accept and heal about ourselves so that we can get to that place of attraction. And these are all happening like consecutively, right? And so as soon as Annalyn like broke through and released, she got to this place of attracting her right clients, still in the corporate space, still as an entrepreneur running her own business. And then now what we're going to be doing is amplification. And so
Yes.
Annalyn's results are extraordinary, okay, from stuck to unstoppable. They're extraordinary because of several factors. And I just want to point that out of these factors. Number one, right? Annalyn had already decided at the very end, beginning of the year, that she wanted to sign up for mentorship. So she had the privileges and the resources and the foresight to invest in herself that way. The second thing is that she reached out for help. Even if she didn't know she was reaching out for help exactly at the beginning, she didn't keep it all into in her, like just in her own. Like she shared what was going on with vulnerability. So that was huge, that vulnerability. Number three, Annalyn already had the tools to know how to release, to let go. She had a relationship with her intuition that she was now deepening. And fourth or fifth, I don't know what number I'm on, Annalyn was already mostly positioned in her industry and needed a little, just kind of a few like little pivots, degrees, and attunements to shift into that right direction. So Annalyn already, you had already all these things already working for you that allowed you to have these really quick successions of attunement, attraction, and amplification.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That's a good summary.
I love that. So tell us. Let's hear really like what you're here to do, and just thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your story and allowing me to be part of like just a little catalyst going this way, that way, this way.
Yeah, yeah. So I really focus on three different areas in my business. Number one is doing dream life and leadership coaching. And by the way, listeners, dream life is one thing that Leslie and I talked about in terms of, what am I trying to do in this world? Right? Does that make sense in terms of what people will be called to in terms of my offerings? Right. And for me, as a dream life and leadership coach, I think of leadership in the holistic way. Like, sure, you could have a position title, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're a good leader at work. And so I think of leadership as, how can someone fully step into their power and be the leader of the life that they really want for themselves, the life that they want to create, that takes away all of the shoulds, and all of the ways in which a person thinks that they should be living. It's actually, how can I connect to what I truly love? What does that mean? Who am I before the world told me I needed to be different? And, I often coach women of color, women in general, but particularly, I think women of color are attracted to what I have to offer because I show up from a place of lived experience and vulnerability.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a safety that people feel, whether I'm facilitating a group and with them for a few weeks, or if I'm working with them closely one-on-one for 6 months to a year, right? Where they're able to fully drop into who they are. And, as a coach, I'm super supportive of whatever choices they decide to make and what their dream life looks like. And I'll also, I think, call them in gently but fiercely to say, is this really what you want? Right? Like, um, and I noticed that, you know, this isn't something like the same themes keep coming up as an example, right?
Mhm.
When I'm working with someone and, you know, I have one client in particular right now, soul client, love her, you know, in terms of her also having the shared experience of being Filipina and dealing with her own inner critic and having to show up in a particular way because of family culture and whatnot. And, you know, being able to work with clients who I could see as like a mirror to myself, right? I think
Mhm.
that's often what we attract
Oh
are
yeah.
people who can be mirrors to us. And everything that this client shares, I could relate to. And, you know, for me, it's such an honor and a privilege to really be a witness, just like you've been a witness to my
Mhm.
transformation and growth. Ooh, that is something I take so seriously, you know, in terms of that space holding
Yeah.
and the championing of someone's dreams, right? Of being able to shift who they want to be in this world so that they could become the best version of themselves.
Ooh, okay, Adeline. So hold on to the champion of someone's dreams or champion of their dreams. Like that lit your chart up like so brightly for me. Like
Mhm.
when you were kind of sharing what you do, and I'm always looking at your chart, and there's certain things that light up. And so when you landed on that Pisces, that dream life, it just like lit up your Pisces rising with the ruler in the fifth house, like championing their lifestyle, that fifth house, that lifestyle with courage and joy and leadership. And your ideal customers, those Virgo, right? We're
Yep.
talking about your Virgo archetype. And of course, you recognize yourself in them because that's the shadows where that Virgo archetype lives for your design. So that perfectionism, that people pleasing, because you have Venus there, the repression of anger because of that Mars. They're getting stuck in past patterns because of your North Node. Like they really want to stretch, but don't know how. And so you give them basically daily practices with your beautiful Cancerian sun to be able to hold that space for them to practice their dream life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's just something that I feel like it's a calling, you know,
Oh, yeah.
coaching and holding space and facilitating these sessions, it really is a calling. And so for me, you know, and being able to speak about these types of experiences that I have is so special because it's a calling, I feel that it comes more naturally. It comes easier than all of these other things I've done in my past career where, you know, whether it was like project management or just, you know, having, I just made a face right now, or just things that wouldn't light me up. It's so much harder to do that stuff. Like, while I can do it, it's like trudging through mud.
Yeah.
It's trudging through mud, and I don't want to do that anymore. I want things to feel as though it, I'm at ease and I'm in flow. And you know, I think I couldn't get to that point. I'm still learning how to do this, y'all, right? This is a
We
work.
all are. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a work in progress. And there is a clear noticing whether it's how my mind is, you know, operating or how my body feels at ease or how my spirit feels like it lights up when it could actually hone in on the creative aspects of developing an experience or to be holding that space for someone in a way that can help them transform themselves. I mean, that's why I started my business so that I could hone in on those gifts and those talents versus, well, I could do this and this is going to make me money, but you know, I mean, just tonally, right? It's just, ugh, I just feel like that even brings me I'm doing this motion with my body where it's like I'm kind of crumpled up. Like
It's
it just
heavy and
yes, it feels very heavy. And now, you and I talked about this expansion, right? Even within my business, that there's some playfulness too, right? Of with my, was it Saturn and
Oh,
Leo?
well, Jupiter, we have all the play part because you have that Jupiter in the fifth house of inner child work and
Yes.
playfulness. And you were sharing with me how you always like put in like little dance moves in your
Yes.
like coaching practice. And I'm like, there you go. And like, oh yeah, your Saturn and Mercury both in Leo. So singing and dancing and like that's part of your core process. And if we were gonna like be, trying to get the acceptance of that gatekeeper would have never let you put in dance and fun, and then your clients would have lost out,
Yeah.
right? But
Right.
your clients are so lucky that you are so tapped into what you're here to do and just how you're letting your intuition lead.
Yeah.
Right? Because we
Ab-
haven't even talked about your intuition. And with your Pisces rising and like Neptune on your midheaven, Sagittarius, Neptune midheaven, I mean, you are a beacon for your intuition that just like flows and vibrates through you.
Thank you.
Right. And
Yeah.
so tell us a little bit about how you've been exploring your intuition in your work and sharing your intuition with others.
Mhm. I do a lot of energy, intuitive, and like spiritual practices. That's something I've been doing over the past like 3.5 years, and deeply doing it through various um, trainings and learnings. And one of the things that I have really been conscious of is, I'm closing my eyes right now, of just being able to access my intuition and my um and get a download from, whether it's like my spirit guides, my ancestors. I talked to my ancestors that morning, that same morning that I had the conversation with the gatekeeper, like, and I said that morning, whatever happens, just I hope you all can guide me in ensuring that the outcome is the best for me. Right.
Yeah.
So regardless of whether I get this job or not, help me decide and see that if this is a good opportunity or not. Right. So I'm able to call in my ancestors. I'm able to call in my friend Christina, who recently passed. I feel like she is a part of my um, spirit guide team now, which is so
Yes.
beautiful. And I'm able to get the wisdom and the downloads from everything else besides for my mind. And I know some people are like, what are you talking about? But truly, it's when I could listen in on myself, when I'm open to hearing those messages from, all of the spirit guides, animals, like the
Mm-hmm.
universe, when I'm able to open up that portal, it's like things just flow. Like things just appear the way that um it's supposed to. And when my mind steps in, whether it's, are you sure, or is this the right move, or that's not going to bring you the money, that's when I start tripping,
Yeah.
because I'm not accessing my intuition at that point. I'm not accessing, you know, a higher being than myself. And I could just tell the difference in how um my body moves through the world in that
Yeah.
way, when I start approaching things in a sense that yeah, I feel more alignment when I'm able to access my intuition. And I think it's this release of, I don't have to do this on my own.
Mm-hmm.
It's the, oh, right, I do have guides, or I have people around me, whether living or they're in the spirit world, who are watching over me and who have my back, and who are wanting me to succeed, and I use succeed as in live the life that I'm meant to, not
Yeah.
by the corporate standards of
Your definition of
my
success.
definition. Yeah, exactly. My own definition of what it means to have a a full and, alive sense of moving through this world and doing it in a way that is my own, right?
I just want to leave one final thought about like just kind of the recognition and the recognition of when you are attuned, but also the recognition now how you're getting used to hearing the inner oppressor and just being like, no, that's not for me, because the inner oppressor is going to play tricks on our mind. It's going to play tricks on like that's the job of the inner oppressor, and especially for BIPOC women, and especially for us Filipino women who grew up from the idea of colonial mentality, which is an exact thing, especially for people who grew up in colonized cultures, where we start to uphold the culture and society of the oppressor and shame our own culture. And this is rampant in the Filipino culture. And that's one of the reasons why we play so well in corporate America, in healthcare America, because we're listening to the inner oppressor instead of listening to ourselves. But you're breaking away. Your Aquarius moon is like, okay, we're done with that. Success means freedom in my nervous system. Success means freedom in my own expression and my independence. And so I just want to celebrate just you, Annalyn, and just thank you so much for sharing your journey at, just this short little journey, and just like how you're tapping into your grounded wisdom.
Thank you. Thank
So,
you.
yeah. So how can people get in touch with you and, like sample your work?
Yeah, so they could go onto my website at groundedinwisdom.co or AnnalynCruz.com. Either way, we'll send you to the site and you can take a look at my offerings there. I'm also on Instagram at Grounded in Wisdom, so you could check me out there. I often do little reels and, post what's on my mind and on my heart. And I often post what I believe the collective is feeling into, And you can find me on LinkedIn at Annalyn Cruz. So several ways to get in touch with me. And I hope to hear from you all.
Yes, and I'll have all those links for groundedinwisdom.co on my website, on the show notes at starpowered.com. And just so much love and support to you, Annalyn. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And just thank you for showing up for me and being a mentor in my life, and at a very hard time in my life. But I also feel like there's just been so much amazing transformation that's taken place. And for you to witness that and hold a mirror up to me I'm truly, truly grateful.
This is just the beginning. All right. Well, bye everyone. And thank you for tuning in. And if you like this episode, please head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. All right. Talk to you soon. As a human design projector, my energy shines more brightly because of people like you who share my work. If you enjoy this podcast and want to help build a movement of innovative astrology and leadership and spark the intuitive revolution, please rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts, or better yet, share this podcast with your change-making besties. We will all shine brighter together as we create the future we